What's up, guys, and welcome to another video. This time we're going to be talking about Last Man Standing. Now, those of you who have been keeping up to date with updates know that there is a new beta that's been getting updated and changed pretty consistently over the last few weeks. Last Man Standing is in the game. It is basically a battle royale RuneScape game mode. It's a lot of fun. Basically, you get spawned into this unique island on RuneScape. You go through searching chests and cabinets and drawers, and you end up finding yourself tons of loot, and your goal is to last until the very end. If you're familiar with how games like H1Z1 and Arma, what is it called in Arma? Oh boy, feels bad. I guess it's just called Battle Royale in Arma, right? I honestly can't remember. Regardless, it is that game mode in RuneScape, and the beta has gone through a lot of changes since it first came out. The footage you're watching right now is as of the third beta. The very first beta that came out was actually vastly different. It was multi-combat. Some of the stuff you see me wearing right now wasn't even possible to get. The Mystic Hat wasn't in. Basically, everything was reduced to top and bottoms of armors. The mage armor tiers were much less. The magic shortbow wasn't even in the game. They've added a lot as these betas have gone on, including restricting combat to single combat, lowering everyone's defense from 99 to 70. A lot of changes have happened, and basically this video, while this footage is going by, it's basically one of my favorite rounds ever. I didn't end up actually winning, spoiler alert, but I did have some fun with the D-bow and D-chain that I found very early. You can actually see my kill getting sniped from this guy right away, which is where we're going to pick up with the feedback of this whole thing. Now, one of the big issues in Last Man Standing is people running away and kind of just taking your kills away from you. One of the things that people can do very easily is just get out of combat with you via some of the agility obstacles that exist around the island. Basically, people who just can like run away and ruin other people's good times. Now, I don't know if there is an actual fix to it, but I would certainly appreciate maybe a longer combat time in between you attacking a person so that, you know, if they do get away from you, the only other way to really fix the issue would be for Jagex to like absolutely overhaul their AI, and not like their AI, but how the follow and the attack system works. And that's obviously not going to happen. That's a very unrealistic expectation. But that all being said, a lot of the problems that I did have with this beta have kind of gone away, and you can see one of them. KOs are now possible. If you just saw me knocking that dude out with the dark bow. Before in Last Man Standing, before they lowered your defense level, and before they restricted the amount of prayer that prayer potions gave you, basically you won the game if you were able to get a full set of rune, a semi-decent melee weapon, maybe a little bit of range, and you had a ton of prayer and food. And basically you and probably two other people would end up hitting each other until the end of the game, and the time would run out, and you would all just kind of tie. Well, that's completely changed since the second iteration of the beta. The game mode is a much faster paced thing now. It was almost unbelievable playing this version as opposed to the previous beta. They have made so many changes that, you know, honestly, I do enjoy some of them, but, you know, it is to say there are still some issues with Last Man Standing that I would like to go over briefly. They completely overhauled Mage. Now, one of the things I have to say about Mage, really strong if you can get it to work. If you manage to come up against someone who has completely failed to get range, you're golden, especially if you can find an Ancient Magics tab or afford Ancient Magics. Runes are no longer so scarce that it's impossible to continue to cast spells. That being said, Mage is still in that weird spot in the combat triangle where it's really hard to one-on-one fight someone with just normal magic because you sacrifice so much defense bonus to put on the magic robes. So when it comes to that, basically normal magics being extremely underpowered, I don't really have a solution. I don't know how Jagex is supposed to deal with that. To be honest, where Mage was in the original beta, I was kind of okay with it. I didn't really mind it being so grossly underpowered. That being said, it's much nicer that it's actually relevant now. So I do appreciate the change. I can't say I benefit from it completely. I've yet to run into a circumstance where it's been, you know, beneficial for me to use magic. In fact, a lot of the time, the amount of runes that I end up opening from finding rune packs in chests actually ends up like monopolizing a lot of my inventory space and makes inventory management a lot harder. Now, one change that they did fix from the second version of the beta to this version is the survival tokens. The survival tokens you get by killing people and selling their items to these vending stations, basically. There are vending stations scattered across the map. Now, it's worth mentioning, the game never ends within reach of a vending station. At about the 8 or 9 minute mark, it is pretty much impossible to be at a vending station without getting hit by basically the toxic gas. Most of you who have played Battle Royale type game modes are familiar with the toxic gas. It forces everybody into, or, in some game modes it's bombs, but gas is usually, it's kind of the staple. It's what H1Z1 uses. Jagex has taken a page out of their book in this case. You basically can't exchange items past a certain point. Now, the other issue is it's really hard to exchange items when you're being hit. You can use an item on the exchanger while you're being attacked, but the problem is if I'm under attack and someone is trying to, or rather I am trying to exchange all these items I've gotten off of people for tokens so I can buy something better, well, it becomes really, really annoyingly difficult, and in a lot of cases, impossible to actually cash in and get that stuff that you earned. So, my first change that I would really like to see in Last Man Standing is have the menu be uninterrupted by combat. That'll make it so you actually are rewarded for getting your items, and it'll also make the game faster. If people are actually able to get in there and quickly sell their items and while being in combat, it'll actually speed the game mode up a little bit. The Jagex might even consider slowing it down a little bit. It got to the point where games rarely lasted less than, probably like 13 minutes. Well, ever since Jagex reduced everyone's defense and added in all these new tiers of magic weapons and ranged weapons, games have been, well, not even coming close to the end timer, to be perfectly honest. So I would like to see, absolutely, you be able to exchange stuff. And for example, that fight I just had with that guy, he would have been able to exchange a bunch of stuff and potentially buy himself something that could have saved his life. So definitely something that in some cases you benefit a lot from, but because it is so hard to buy anything in the late game when you're really actually running into things that you can sell to improve your chances of winning, I would like to see either, you can fix it one of two ways. Let people be in combat and exchange things, or make the fog come in a little bit later. And that's a little hard to do because the game ends in so many different places that it's hard to keep track of, is a vending station within reach? And that's good if it's a little varied. If people can't exactly keep track of when the vending stations are going to be safe to be at, that's a good thing. Keeping it dynamic and keeping the game mode, truly changing from game to game, that's a good thing. Because right now, every game is pretty much the same. I spawn, I either get good loot or bad loot. I get in a fight with someone. I either kill them or lose to them. If I kill them, I have a very, very strong chance of moving forward and probably getting to the end, because once you get a good kill early and quickly, you can leverage that into pretty much a bunch more kills. The faster you can get a kill, the better off you are, because obviously every time you get a kill, you get one of those bloody keys, and that usually comes with some sort of good piece of gear or at least a bunch of food to help you fight someone else. Now, as of the mage change, range is now by far the weakest combat in the game. Dark bows are very rare. You can't buy them from the shop, and you really only rarely find them. Now, this game that you're watching, this gameplay, happens to be one of those games where I managed to find a dark bow. It's, I think, only the third time I've had one, and the first 2 times it was because I killed someone with one. It's never come in handy for me. Now that everyone's defense has been lowered, this thing can actually kill you. And it's very thematic with the changes that Jagex made, because they added in a Gmaul, they added in the magic shortbow. There is KO potential now. Now, the problem with range, arrows. Huge, huge problem. Jagex has improved the ability to loot arrows. Occasionally you run into arrow packs in the magical loot crates, but all that being said, and this also helps combat the idea of people running away from you, if you are early in the game and you find range, you can easily be thwarted by your opponent running away from you, because there is no way, it is physically impossible to pick up your arrows as you go and continue to fight them, which means if in the early game you happen to spawn in and get only ranged combat, you are at a severe disadvantage. So, very simple fix to that. Really, all you have to do is just give people more arrows. You could do that. There's also, feasibly, you could just make it so that people could find an accumulator. That's always an option as well. Capes are not yet in Last Man Standing, and it wouldn't be crazy to add them in, especially an accumulator. Could be the way to go. It could be you just give people more arrows, or it could be the people who are lucky enough to find an accumulator with their bow, benefit from that. And I would honestly rather have that than just giving people tons more arrows. I think that makes a lot more sense. So perhaps introduce an accumulator, perhaps give people more arrows, kind of up to Jagex. Now, the other complaint I had with Last Man Standing, or at least piece of input, not really a complaint, but piece of input I had before this third installation of the beta, was basically the whole prayer problem. Everyone sat and just kind of hit each other and didn't do any damage for 10 minutes, and the game ended as a tie. That address has been, it's been addressed. That issue has been addressed. However, I still think prayer needs some thought. You enter the game and you come in with 10 prayer. Now, if you find a prayer potion, that is on top of that. I think now you get somewhere around, gosh, I don't know the exact number. It used to be like 30 because you had 99 prayer. You'd get 30 prayer potions for finding a dose of prayer potion. And typically you find those in 1 or 2 doses. So if you were to find a prayer potion early, you would basically leverage that into a huge amount of prayer, and it, was equal to basically a full inventory of sharks. Finding a prayer potion was invaluable. Now, not so valuable because of the lowering of defense, but also, it's still a pain. Too many games now, I feel, are still being run by people with prayer. Now, there is this one problem. Early on, when everyone's defense was still 99, I think it was definitely feasible to just completely remove overhead prayers and everyone would be fine. Now that Jagex has made everyone have 70 defense, it's a little bit more interesting. And let me explain why. If overheads were removed and people still had a really high defense level, it wouldn't have been such a problem. There was such a large difference, and not only an increase of weaponry, now the weapons are higher tiered and it's easier to hit people, but if you took prayers away from people at 99 defense, I think that would have been fine. Overheads, that is. But now that we're 70 defense, I think that would be overkill. I mean, people would die so fast. So prayer would be extremely undervalued. It would really only be used for stuff like Piety and Eagle Eye and Mystic Might. And you can't do that. The other problem with taking something like that away is you take away an element of skill. A lot of Last Man Standing is luck, but you cannot remove one of the only elements of skill from the game mode. As much as I hate prayer flicking and hate to admit how bad I am at it, it is something that needs to remain in Last Man Standing because it adds that element of skill that people are looking for. And skilled players will then, be rewarded. That's right. That's only fair, really. So that's really, I haven't offered a solution for that problem, but I think it's something that needs to be slowly tweaked and addressed. This third beta, this third installment of the beta, really changed things completely. Really just flipped everything upside down. And it's pretty typical of Jagex to just kind of rush off and make a change like that so quickly. So I would definitely in the future like to see them make smaller tweaks, and hopefully we can see stuff like that because excuse me, because finely tuning stuff is in the end just going to end up being, more beneficial. Let's not make massive changes all at once because we know how that goes. Either way, guys, I'm about to die here, sadly, because my Debo was unable to hit this guy. And there I go. Thank you so much for watching this review of Last Man Standing. If you want to watch all of the vacation playlist videos, they're in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.